are live on Wonderful Wednesday. We are on the last Wednesday of May. May is almost done, Don.
Unbelievable. I know. I can't believe it. I mean, the days are long. It's great to wake up early and it's light out, and it's great to be up late and it's light out. So love this time of year.
Yes, and the allergies. I've been taking an allergy pill for 2 weeks now because
Yeah,
it's
there's
woo.
always a downside. I had a little bit of
Yeah,
that about 3 weeks ago. I had the same thing going, so I understand.
yeah, yeah. Hey, Bobby, nice to see you here. Well, we'll just dive right in. So, we just had the election. It's just a little over a week. And this story out of Jefferson Public Radio says despite the national pause, Oregon is stuck with the U.S. Postal Service changes that locals say hurt small businesses. And the changes to the postal system have really affected this election. And it's going to, if you need an excuse never to mail a ballot, this is it right here. In fact, I want to make sure that I get this article posted in there because it talks about some of the challenges that were happening. And one of which when I heard that the post office, all of our mail goes to Portland. It doesn't need to. Like our mail used to get processed in Pendleton, but they changed it so everything in Oregon goes to Pendleton. You can get something mailed across from Florida faster than you can get local mail.
So
And it's
everything goes
hurting
to Portland.
businesses. Pardon?
Everything goes to Portland. Is that what you said?
Everything. All the mail in this state goes to Portland.
Wow. What could
And
go wrong
so
with that?
these changes have slowed the delivery of mail,
Mhm.
including ballots during the recent primary. And so, how do you like this? Postal management chose to disregard the instructions of the Secretary of State by loading ballots into private vehicles and dropping them in county election boxes after hours. Does that make you feel warm and fuzzy about who handled your ballot? When you drop a piece of mail, let alone a ballot, at the post office is supposed to deliver it to another postal address. Like we're not supposed to put anything in a post office in a box, right? I can't go drop, hey Don, I here's that cup of milk I borrowed and go stick it in your mailbox. That's like a federal crime, right? And here you had in the state of Oregon, yes, the state of Oregon, that they were some of the post offices, I don't want to say them all because of that part I don't know, are collecting, and I heard about this because I had heard that the postal office was holding ballots, not going saying, well, we don't know what the counties are going to have to pay for the postage because it has a postage paid envelope on there. And it, of course, goes by county. The little color code on the top of your ballot return envelope isn't about party, it's about what county it goes to. And here they were. I heard about some shenanigans with the post office, so I went and asked our elections office, and they said, well, actually, the post office has been canceling the ballot, putting a stamp on there for when it was, and then dropping it in a ballot drop box
Well,
in their own private vehicle.
what Uncle Joe Stalin said, it's not how you count the votes, is who count the votes. And you see a perfect example of that in the great Northwest.
Yeah. And then, so that's one portion. Another one was found that an example of a ballot destined for Klamath County Clerk's Office that was postmarked in Portland on election day, but it didn't arrive to the Medford processing plant until May 28th. So since it arrived after the mail was already dispatched for Klamath Falls, that ballot won't arrive to the county clerk's office before the 7-day deadline. Now, wait a minute, you know, you've put it in the mail in plenty of time, but now 7 days. And I actually have a friend that lives here in Umatilla County, but they live right on the border to Washington. Their mail, because of their address, goes to Washington state before it comes back into Oregon and gets delivered. It is 10 days to get their ballot. So when their ballot is mailed, like where they mail the ballots out, 10 days before they get it.
Yeah, eventually this whole mail-in ballot thing's got to be reversed. There's just too many opportunities for cheating, and clearly the other side has zero principles, as you can see.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a fabulous reason of why we should just go back to in-person voting. They're screwing up the mail system so bad that we just should have in-person voting right in our precincts. Let's get it over with all in one day. I liking that.
And this whole justification that people can't, they voted forever walking into school
Oh yeah,
houses and places
oh
like
yeah,
that to vote. All of a sudden, people don't know how to do that.
yeah.
And if
They should just make it a national holiday.
yeah, yeah,
Election day is a holiday, and everything's shut down, and go vote.
yeah,
Except, of course, the elections office.
yeah. If it was not important enough for you to find the time to go vote, then you probably shouldn't be voting.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, this story is a big deal in mail-in ballots here in Oregon. And I don't know if I think I've talked about it here on Captive Audience, but it used to be that we got in the town that I live in, we got mail delivered like twice a day. And so you had to be to the post office by 1:15 for your outgoing mail to go out. But
Hmm.
now we only get one truck a day.
Hmm.
And that's at like 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
So if there's no reason for me to rush to the post office anymore. Just get it in today's mail and it'll go out tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, the mere fact that it's the government that controls it should tell you that that's not the way you should be voting. I mean, because they're going to do things that are, and this is not just because of the inefficiency of government. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But it's
Yeah.
they're going to support things that position them to retain more power. So the incentives are misaligned. Let's put it that way. For them to be in control of that is like the fox in control of the hen house.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm putting another actually a press release that came from Senate Republican leader Daniel Bonham, and this was today. And it is a revenue forecast. The state should limit spending amidst stagnant growth, high inflation, and rising costs. You think? So I'm very glad that our Senate Republican leaders has said that we've just got to watch it, right? So across the state, Oregon families are having to tighten their budgets and make difficult choices as rising costs due to high inflation outpace their earnings. And it's time the state does the same. And it goes on, but that says enough. And I agree with that. It is not a revenue issue, it is the spending problem. It's always a spending problem. The where they choose to spend the tax dollars. I was recently last week at it was a highway safety project for a stretch of highway here, and because we have a lot of accidents and several fatalities a year there. And, someone said, well, do you have enough money? And I said, oh, yeah, they have enough money. It's all depends on where they want to spend it. Let's see, are we going to design roundabouts or are we going to actually take care of public safety? So,
Well, it's never enough when you're spending somebody else's money, and it's easy to do that, and they'll just demand more and more and more. It's the nature of government. This is one of the reasons why the founders designed this thing so government would stay small, because they knew that this would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Lori says, name a government agency you trust.
That's tough.
Can't
Right
think of
now,
one.
I there were some that I would have said in the past. I used to trust the military more than the others, but given the events of the last 4 years, I'm not so sure I'd say that anymore either. Um,
I was going to say DMV, but because of voter registration, that's actually, I was going to thinking, well, DMV, they're pretty. No, because of the voter registration thing, and people getting having their voter registration changed at the DMV, whether they wanted to or not. And I talked to people like that. They go, I was this and now I'm that. And I said, did you go to DMV recently? Yeah, like a year ago. I said, well, so take note. If you go to DMV, ask them, nothing's changed in my voter registration, right? That's what I did when I
yeah,
went and had to renew my license. They said no. And then check your voter registration and make sure before elections. And it's so sad that we have to do that, that we have to check our voter registration before an election comes up,
but it's
especially
sad
the
to say
primary.
it's in there. If you're unprincipled, then the only thing that matters is your personal financial interest, and for these reasons, and you got to recognize too, it's never in a government program's DNA to solve a problem, because that means they would go away. If your purpose is to solve some problem, then what do you do when the problem's solved? So as a result, they don't try to solve problems. It's so hard for people to understand that,
Yeah.
but they don't solve problems. They just look for new ways to spend more money. Problems never go away. In a lot of cases, they exacerbate the problem.
Well, Don, if they solved the problem, they'd be unemployed.
Right, exactly. So there's no interest in solving the problem.
No,
And you see this pretty
no.
much, you look like government welfare programs, for example, is a great example of that. It's in their interest to keep those things growing and to find another group that's been aggrieved and is underpaid or whatever it is. And they just keep funding it, or homelessness. I mean, another one, they'll just spend the money, never looking to solve the problem, but basically looking to keep people homeless. That's
Yeah,
their clientele.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, it's not necessarily homeless, but drugs and alcohol can lead to being homeless. And here is a story in the Willamette Week that is treating drug and alcohol abuse in Oregon could cost $7 billion. Now, this report was released on May 18th, and it comes as a legislative task force weighs a bump in alcohol taxes. Oh my gosh, treating drugs and alcohol, could cost us a lot of money. Hello, of course. But, they have a lot of money. Don't forget, they have a lot of money. So 2 weeks ago, the state quietly published a final estimate of the cost to close the gaps in Oregon's drug and alcohol treatment system. And it's a staggering number, $6.85 billion a year.
See, I'd want to know what their solution is. I mean, they toss dollars around, right? But what are you proposing to do? Because it really the devil's in the details, right? What are you
Yeah,
going to do? What is the specific plan that you put in place to get people, and then how do you track the success of it? Because if you're not doing that, you're just wasting money, which is what they're used to. They never get held accountable for this stuff. It's just like, say, for example, homelessness. If you tell me you need like $10 billion, let's say, to solve the homeless problem, I want to know, what are you going to do? Because if it doesn't involve a law enforcement component, meaning you can't sleep in the streets anymore. If it doesn't involve putting people in detention, number one. Number two, if it doesn't involve in forcing people to clean up, right? So you don't have a program in place to do that. Then I don't care how much money you spend; it's not going to work. Um,
yeah. And
even things like,
also, they're saying, and I agree with you, what are you going to do? Well, that's these non governmental organizations, NGOs, nonprofits raking in the money,
mhm.
saying they're going to do something.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly right.
Oregon has a history of failure. We have failed Oregon healthcare. Remember the rollout that cost us billions, the website and the whole thing that never worked cost us millions of dollars, not billions. It cost us millions of dollars.
Because they don't have
And
measurable outcomes. They don't have, I'm
no,
going to do
no, they
X
don't.
and then I'm going to get this outcome. If you don't get this outcome, you're fired or moving to the next solution. You got to tell us what you're going to do. Tell us how you're going to measure how do you measure success or failure? And when success or failure happens, what happens next? I mean, and this is a great bridge, I just got to say, into one of the topics we're going to discuss real quick was we've got 3 people running for the position of school commissioner. I think it is in Portland, right? One's from Vancouver, Washington. Another one's from like somewhere in Texas. And I can't remember where the third one's from. I think it's like Seattle area or something, right? When you listen to them, and I've read the article about them, they're all saying the same word salad. I mean, nobody's saying anything that will really effectively make change in the Portland Public School District. Nobody's talking about the curriculum. I mean, the whole article, I'm looking at the thing, the whole article, there's nothing in here about the curriculum. There's nothing in here about measurable results. There's nothing in here about what you're specifically going to do. You know, it's stuff like, here you go, boost graduation rates. That's meaningless. They boost graduation rates by just simply saying everybody graduates.
Well, right. They threw the bar away, Don. There used to be a high bar that you had to achieve. They threw the bar away, and now there's no standard to achieve.
Yeah. I don't care about graduation rates. I care about test scores. Are you going to measure the test score? And then what are you going to do to improve the test score? You keep all this word salad about helping minorities and underprivileged and career tech. It's like just nonsense. I'm just looking at this. There's absolutely nothing in here. And unless you're talking about specific things, specific measurable account, at the end of the next 2 years, you're going to see this result. If you don't fire me, I mean, just like you have in you look at professional sports, nobody has a problem with this. If you become a coach and the team loses more than it wins for too long, they get another one.
Right.
You know, but they don't measure anything here. Basically, they just use Portland as a stepping stone to get to their next bigger city government job that pays them more to accomplish absolutely nothing again. I just find basically what it comes down to and the only way to fix the public school problem is a voucher program. You know, if you're not talking about a voucher program, you're not fixing this.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You know, because with competition comes solutions.
Yeah, that if you want to fix the problem, introduce competition, which is a quick segue. So Governor Abbott in Texas is saying that he's got votes to pass school vouchers. There's a solution-oriented governor.
Yes. Yes, and boy, hasn't he been providing solutions in so many areas.
Yeah, because the incentives align with the result you want to get. It's much easier to get people motivated with a carrot than to chase them around with a stick. And that's just the reality of it. Let the parents choose. If you want to keep promoting crazy stuff in a classroom, go ahead. You just lose students and lose money. That's how you fix the problem.
Well, speaking of problems, there is another problem, and 28 groups. I've just posted that story that is from Oregon Capital Chronicle, that 28 groups and former DEQ staff have asked the governor to intervene urgently in East Oregon water contamination. And they've said in a letter to Governor Tina Kotek, they said agencies have failed to provide local residents with water testing and safe drinking water. This is a problem that has been kicked down the can for 30 years at least. And it's a shame that the elected leaders, and specifically, I will call out Greg Smith because this is in his district, predominantly in his district, that this issue is. And the Port of Morrow is also a contributor, which is his district and something that he, quite frankly, built and is on the board of. And yet they and the Port of Morrow contributes heavily to the nitrate issue because of the food processing facilities there. And so this is the can has been kicked down the road. And yet when we elect people to represent us, we are asking them to look out for us, right? We're asking them to speak for us and look out for our best interest,
Mhm.
not the best interest of lobbyists, not their own self interest. They are to represent us. And I can say, he has not. And so here you have two former staff, Oregon Environmental Quality Department, who signed the letter, Greg Pettit and Mitch Walgamot. They're both retired senior administrators who worked for the agency's water permitting department and the East Oregon office. And they're saying we've got a big problem here and you need to help fix it. We've got to get more wells tested. And it's a shame that so far only about 1/3 of the wells have been tested in the areas that are, these are domestic wells in
Mhm.
Morrow and Umatilla counties. And some residents didn't get the results for the water tests for 7 or more months. And a few were told their water was safe, even when the results showed nitrate levels nearly 4 times the legal limit, according to the letter. And this is something that is, this
Mhm.
reminds me of what's the town, where they've got their water, Flint, Michigan,
Yes, right. Uh-huh.
right? And here we have this in Morrow and Umatilla counties. It's in West Umatilla County predominantly, although I know where I'm at here that there is some pockets of areas that have high nitrate issues. And people should be testing their wells. I don't know what it costs. I'm not on a well. I don't know what it costs, but I'll tell you, it's your health. It's your
Right.
livelihood and your health.
Mhm.
I would. Did Flint ever get fixed? Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know what the fault was. So many of these stories, these disasters happen, and the national media buries it. So you're right. I don't know what the result of that was. Just like the train explosion in Ohio.
Yes,
Is it
Palestine,
in the news?
Ohio.
Right.
Oh man,
Yeah.
those people got shafted.
Yeah. It's like, can you imagine Chernobyl just disappearing from the news?
Right. Exactly. Because and whatever possessed them to start a fire? Let's just burn all this stuff up.
Sounds like an eighth grade.
It wasn't causing a contamination problem until they did that.
Yeah, it literally sounds like an eighth grade boys solution. Let's just like burn up the remains. What could go sideways here? Nobody will know. But yeah,
Pat
it's
says, with all the cans at the bottom of the road, it seems someone should be collecting them. That's kicking the can. I like that, Pat.
yeah. What winds up happening is we all wind up suffering for it. I know. I firmly believe that anybody running for office should have, like, say, three main things they want to achieve. That they tell the electorate, "I'm going to do A, B, and C. Here's how you can measure the success for that. And at the end of whatever my term is, I haven't done this, then fire me." That, you know, get rid of all the fluff. What is
Or
the
you're going to get a mouthful of excuses. Well, we didn't have the House or we didn't have the Senate. And oh boy, we really tried.
right? Yeah. Well, and recognize that maybe you won't reach your goal, right? But you need to be able to show objective evidence that you did everything possible to make that happen. I mean,
I
that's
agree.
yeah, and they just don't, and this keep things just stay the same. And you always have to ask yourself, who's benefiting from it staying this way? Like in the
Right.
case of the water issue out there, and I really am ignorant on that, but I will say this: somebody's benefiting from it staying that way. That's why it's like that. So who's benefiting?
Yeah, and I'll tell you. Well, Yeah, exactly. The food processors
Hmm.
that were contributing to that, and in fact, I just have to give credit to Jim Doherty of Morrow County. He was a county commissioner at the time. In fact, he was the chair of Morrow County commissioners at the time, and he and another commissioner voted to call for a water emergency in Morrow County when they found out, and it was him doing research after going to a meeting that he was asked to kick the can down the road some more, just sign off on this, so DEQ will get off our back. And he said, "What are you talking about?
So
What?
did they
Let's
declare
do some testing."
did they declare the
And
water emergency?
And he did. Morrow County is actually, and so it was him
God.
who was going against the bucking the system, going against the grain, and Morrow County commissioners declared a state of emergency for water and the contamination of the water, and brought it to the states, brought it to the forefront that they
Okay.
could not sweep it under the rug. And kudos to them. That's looking out for you, the people that you were elected to look out for. You
And
know,
that's
right, wrong, or indifferent, like the person or not,
mhm.
he did the right thing for the people. And
Yeah.
yes, and so there has to be something done. And what is interesting, because I've read quite a bit about this issue. It's like 20 years ago or so, the governor made a committee to monitor the situation.
Hmm.
The committee was just busy work.
Yeah.
The committee didn't monitor Jack, and they had no solutions to anything. Did the committee never did well testing?
It's a nice cover, right?
It's that's all it
Just-
was. Well,
right.
we'll make a committee that's going to study it. So let me tell you, anytime they say we're going to make a committee,
Mhm.
they're kicking the can.
Well, and if you are going, and this is where you come back again to the objective stuff. Okay, you form a committee on March 1st. Here's a date. You're going to provide. You're going to tell us what you did, what you've accomplished, and then what you're going to tell us what you're going to accomplish in the next 3 months. So we're going to meet again on July, August, or whatever it is, and you're going to tell us what you accomplished. You have to have objective things that they're going to do. Otherwise, it's just meaningless and it's fluff. It's like if you've ever been in a company where you have meetings. If you don't have an objective for that agenda, then you're just like wasting time. What's the purpose of the meeting? When we walk out of here, what are we going to have accomplished? And then what's going to happen for the next one? If you're not doing that, it's wasting time.
Well,
Um,
you're right there. You're
yeah,
right there.
and these guys are
So
experts.
they are. They are very much. And that is a good segue into our next story of the 320 million Gaza pier failure. It's in shambles after heavy seas nearly destroyed it. And I said to my husband today, I said, hell, I could have predicted this. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, but I've lived on the ocean for a number of years. And so here it was 4 foot waves, just some little 4 foot waves destroyed this. And what I've learned today is that the engineers and the military are going, we don't want to do this. This is not the thing to do. But somebody, you have those, what is it, armchair quarterbacks, right?
Mhm.
Going, well, we're going to do it anyway.
Sure.
And this is an epic failure. And then what little goods that got ashore, nobody was ever guarding them or anything like that.
Mhm.
And more than 70% of the aid that actually reached shore was stolen before it even got to the warehouse.
And that's so much of the problem with these aid projects, whether they're aid projects inside the United States or out. So much of it never gets to the intent, especially when it's international. It usually winds up in lining the pockets of some dictator. Um,
Absolutely. This is where aid needs to happen. Now, this was, it all costs money, right? All this aid. And frankly, I thought they're doing this, but this is arming the enemy. This is arming Hamas, helping Hamas, who attacked the innocent civilians of Israel at a music festival. And the world has forgot this, and it's wrong.
well, I think the Western world is showing its anti-Semitic tendencies, just like it did in the 30s. Um, there's no other way you can explain it. I mean, how many Israelis got killed that day in October, all in one shot,
Oh,
intentionally?
October 7th. Yeah. I don't have a number. I'm sorry.
It was some huge number. I think it was
Yeah.
close to or more than we lost on 9/11 against a country, the population of which is what, you know, 10-15% of the United States. I mean, the
Yeah.
equivalent numbers of people, it would have been like us losing, several 100,000 or something, right?
Yeah.
And then we expect them to do nothing.
Yeah.
Um, to
I
retaliate.
expect them to just kick the Hamas's ass.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, that's like Japan's bombs Pearl Harbor, and we're so sorry. We didn't mean to like offend you.
Right, right. Oh, gee whiz, okay. We'll accept your apology. No. Well, Hamas
Yeah.
hasn't apologized.
It's the only country in the world that's supposed to take it in the teeth and do nothing in response. And the fact that they're burying their military with embedding them with women and children, and then blaming Israel for it, it's really incredible how Israel has been able to retaliate. How few civilians they've killed, given what the Palestinians are doing. It's just amazing.
Yeah, yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, it is. And more failure is
Mhm.
Biden's foreign policy has totally destabilized the entire globe. It's a world of failure, of fail, and it's just so sad. Just 3 years ago, we had the Trump oversaw the historic Abraham Accords.
Mhm.
With Israel signed with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain,
Mhm.
and looking towards peace in the Middle East. And to what we have today, it is such a stark contrast.
None
And
of this
Trump
stuff
is
is going on.
still,
Yeah.
he's still the only president that never started a war.
Yeah. When you have a president like what we have now, I hate to even say his name, you
Yep.
encourage uh, these countries to destabilize the regions they're in. For example, I mean, China, and would they invade Taiwan? I think it's a long shot. But part of the reason that they haven't is the threat that the United States might get involved in it. If you're them, you have to be looking at this and thinking, well, maybe this might be the time to do it while they have a weak president. Nothing's going on. Maybe now's it. And certainly the other countries in the region think that. I mean, Japan is rearming itself because they don't trust us anymore. I'd have to guess. I've not researched it, but I have to guess that if you're Vietnam, South Korea, uh, Philippines, any of those countries, and you got China at your back door, you might not be thinking more about where you'd be thinking about that position, given how the United States has behaved, and
Yeah.
we've seen what they've done to Ukraine. It's like an utter disaster, and of course there's Afghanistan. It just never stops.
No, it doesn't. So in this article that I just posted from PJ Media, um, so Russia is now holding out offers of peace negotiations, demanding it gets to keep all the territory it now holds in Ukraine. So now Ukraine says we're refusing to settle for less than the return of all Russia occupied land. So including Crimea. So they're at a standstill. And it says further east, Taiwan inaugurated its new anti Beijing pro US president, Lai Ching te, last week, and China, and I probably slaughtered that name. China immediately surrounded the island nation with aggressive air force and naval exercises.
Mhm. Yeah.
As the communist country's economy struggles, global bankers are describing China as uninvestable
Mhm.
these days.
Well, it's a
And
and the thing about these
Newsweek speculates that about whether China is gearing up for a hot war.
Well, the thing with China, whenever these dictators corner, they're dangerous animals because their objective is to take their population's eyes off what a failure they've been. So you have to
Yes.
create some event someplace else, and usually a nice war is a good way to do it. Although you don't want that war to be too hot because you might collapse if it's too hot a war. But they've done this all over the world. Whenever there's a disaster at home, you start a war someplace. Um, and we're we're not setting ourselves up for something pretty by being weak.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. And but we have to pay attention. Like it or not, this is like not good news. We have to pay attention
Mhm.
and know and not just shirk away from it and go, well, maybe that won't happen. Well, I hope it doesn't. But things are not looking real bleak because of our feckless president that we have.
Yeah. Well, we're encouraging Russia and China to collaborate with each other. Two countries that are natural enemies, and our government's so bad that they're actually working together.
They are, and so in Africa, political things are changing over there, and political leaders are rejecting American aid and presence. And Niger is currently in the process of replacing U.S. troops with Russian ones. And Russian military personnel have entered an airbase in Niger that is hosting U.S. troops. And we're leaving a base over there. You know, Biden has called the troops out, and I understand it's like $100 million base that we're just walking away from. You know, there's some material things are going to be taken out of there, and it's not a good deal. But I want to change to Trump here, a little bit to Trump. Brace yourselves. This is from Town Hall. It says, brace yourselves for a Trump conviction because the judge has tilted the scales. And do we have any allies left? That's a very good question. It's not, I wouldn't call Ukraine an ally, but I think Biden would. You know, but me personally, I would not. But you know, the jury deliberated today. They received some instructions today, and the judge has this article from Town Hall is written by Matt Vespa,
Mm-hmm.
and he says that so Katie. As Katie wrote this morning, none of this is normal. The judge's instructions to the jury is aberrant.
Well, here's the thing. From the get go, there's no way that a fair trial was going to happen in New York State just because of the nature of what we're talking about here. So the venue itself is bad. But I got a question: is this one of those cases? And again, I'm completely ignorant of this. Is it one of these cases where it's required to have a unanimous vote? So
No.
okay, so we know that. Okay.
So this is what he said. The judge told the jury they do not need unanimity to convict. 4 could agree on one crime, 4 on a different one, and 4 on another. He said he would treat 4, 4, and 4 as a unanimous verdict.
Okay. Okay. So given that, and we don't know who said what they needed to say to get on that jury. You get people who just completely lied and pretended to be fair and balanced to get on it. And actually, in either direction, most likely in the direction we wouldn't want, of course. But so we don't know. And then, of course, what's going to be the penalty? If they do convict, is he in jail immediately? Because if he isn't, it doesn't matter, really. Are they just going to fine him? You know, what are they going to do?
Well, and I like this one guy. He writes, "That's not even legal in Zimbabwe." Instructions.
No, it's completely third world. It's hard to believe we're having this conversation.
It's
in the United
kangaroo
States.
court.
Yeah, I remember laughing about this stuff when I had a Soviet dissident professor back in the 80s talking about what trials were like in East Germany and the Soviet Union. And here we are having the exact same thing here. I mean, this is the exact same thing, you know. But now that it's here, you know, we have to deal with it.
Right.
And
it is here, and we do have to deal with it. And I read today that the Secret Service, the jails have been in touch with the Secret Service about how they would handle this, because I read that Trump could, let's say a guilty verdict comes down, he could be remanded right then.
Mhm.
And the Secret Service goes with him.
Mhm.
That's their job, is to protect the president.
And then what's
And
the
all former presidents all have Secret Service details and their families. And so
the hilarious thing about this, Sonny, is I think that helps him from an election perspective. I don't think that
Oh,
is.
100%. Oh,
I mean,
100%.
you saw the response to him in the Bronx. Oh, he can go to prison and be a hero in prison. He
Oh,
might be
yeah.
the only.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be the first bling president in history.
This guy on the news, he goes, "I'm voting for my daddy," you know? And I was like,
It's
the more they
unbelievable.
do, the more support he gets. It's totally backfiring.
It's unreal. They have turned the Democratic Party. They have managed to turn. What is it? Is he 75 years old? They've managed to turn a 75-year-old white billionaire into a hero amongst
Yes.
rappers. How bad do you have to be as a Democrat strategist to have accomplished this? It's unreal. I mean, he is so popular amongst young black men now. It's like
Yes.
insane. I
Yes.
mean, they're voting against a 50-year family tradition for him. And you saw it with your own eyes in the
Yes.
Bronx. I never thought I would see that. I, I mean, these guys had more gold on than Fort Knox, and they're
Yeah.
voting for Trump. And their reasons are great reasons. They may not be articulated in the smoothest way, but they remember. You can talk all the data and stats and all that till the cows come home.
Yep.
They remember what it was like 5 years ago. You know, our paying less than $2 a gallon for gas. Eggs didn't cost $3 for a dozen. I mean, you just go on the list. You had jobs. Things were great.
Yeah. Things were great.
Yeah,
Things were great.
yeah.
America was humming,
Yeah, I
you
watched
know?
CNN people interviewed lying through their teeth. But the thing is, you can't lie about this because for the first time since the Garfield administration, we have back to back comparison. So we
Yes.
know.
We do know. We do know. It's so apparent.
Mhm.
And so, and with what the Judge Mershon has done, this is easily overturned. Okay. In listening to the lawyers and that, this is easily overturned. But still, they will say, "Oh, he's convicted."
Oh,
He's
sure.
convicted. It's
But
the label, but you know what? That label's going to give him even more cred.
yeah, and the thing is that marketing only works for people who were already going to vote for him anyway. I don't care how much evidence you give to the 30% hardcore Democrat.
Yeah. So it is absolutely crazy. So this story has said that
They're not buying it.
no, no, and they're not buying it, and he's so 4 votes is a unanimous verdict. I don't think so. That's
That's
Biden's America. That is not our justice system. And this is where people have to realize they are shredding our constitution. They're shredding our judicial system. This is setting I don't even I
Mhm.
don't know that this will set a precedent. Yes, it was the first president to ever be brought charges on like this, you know.
Well, what you have to
Because
see is, yeah, we're hey, Trump's not on trial here.
no.
He's a symbol of what's coming. We're all on trial. If they can do that to
Yep,
him, they can do that to you, and they will do that to you. And that's probably
absolutely.
once we get past all the laughter. This is this is one of the scariest things that's happened in our lifetime.
It is. It is scary, and I hope people realize how important this is of what's going on. And then one last thing I wanted to bring up is because last week we covered the election. It was right after election day,
Mhm.
and talking about who won the primary. And Monique Despain won the Republican primary for District 4 and House District 4. And or I don't know, not no, I'm sorry, Congressional District 4. I misspoke there. And right now, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee has recognized that Representative Val Hoyle as a vulnerable incumbent. And so they realize she doesn't have the lead that she did have. She's also under investigations, federal investigations, and state investigations. And so if we could help get more people in the House, this is an absolute seat to help do that on. And Monique Despain, so nearly $1.3 million Hoyle has raised, and DeReamer has raised 3.3 million, and Salinas 2.6 million, and that's a heck of a lot more than Despain has raised. But I think now the Republicans will help to spend, the congressional Republicans will help to flow money into Despain, and it needs to happen. It really needs to happen. And it needs to happen directly through to her and not through the state party, because they're in a shambles. And the money needs to get into her hands and her campaign's hands, so it can work effectively to get her elected. I mean, that would just be another House seat. That would be fabulous for us here.
And the thing is, things are winnable out west. I mean, we're seeing what we see what's happening in the Bronx as an example, but also look what happened in Portland with the DA. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought? People in Portland got hit with the brick over the head hard enough, because that's what it took to finally get rid of a left-wing crazy DA who would not prosecute crime, and exchange him for, in effect, a Republican who's an independent now, but you got to do what you got to do to get elected, who's going to be pro-law. I mean, but they did. And if you get beat over the head enough with your own really stupid policies, people can still change. So keep up the hope. Keep up the faith.
Yep. Never lose hope. And keep praying. Keep the faith. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, I think it's, I saw a recording today of a nun. I don't know where, here in America somewhere. And she was saying, when Trump wins, this is God's plan. And I just went, oh, bless you. I like hearing that from you, especially, but,
well, at the end of the day, to look at it from a moral perspective, we kind of had this coming. I mean, we let these people, the radical left, do this to us for the last 40 years. We've rolled over and said no prayer to school. We rolled over and said contraceptives in the school without parental permission. We rolled over and said, oh, gay marriage is like cool, right? We've rolled over on how many hundreds of millions of abortions like are completely legal, okay for this company to make money doing it, right? We've rolled over on so many moral things. It's kind of, not kind of, it is our fault for not putting our foot down. And we didn't put our foot down until they were kicking our door down. Now, having said that, now we're waking up, and that's a good thing. In a sense, we're kind of like the citizens of Portland. They had to get hit over the head with a brick before they finally realized these policies are crazy, and these policies will eventually kill you. And it's true for the rest of us. What happens on the other side of town does matter on our side of town. We could live comfortably in our part of town. Those people are crazy. I'm not voting like that. And then do nothing about it until finally it comes to us, because they're never going to stop. I mean, there are those who would say, I'm going to flee to another state to get away from it. Well, you could do that, but somebody's got to be in the front line, right? I mean, like in the old Vietnam War, somebody got to go Vietnam. Everybody can't go to college.
Right? That started the boon to college.
Yeah. Not everybody can be a rear echelon, right? Somebody's got to fight the fight, because these people take over. They will never stop. You can run to Idaho, or we could run to like Montana, but you know what? They're going to those places too, because that's their strategy. So at some point, you got to drop your buckets where they are and put up the fight. And that's what we're doing here. And those of you listening obviously are the same ilk, or you wouldn't be listening to something like this. So, but you're getting wins. Congratulations.
Yeah. That's a great note to end on. Thank you very much, Don.
Well, that sounded like a rant.
That was good.
Well, thank you. It's always good.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for watching. Spread the message, share around, tell your friends, and we'll be back here. I'll be back on Friday night, and we'll see Don next week. Thank you,
Take care,
everybody.
everybody.